16岁去餐厅刷盘子的时候你在哪儿？800块，家里就是拿不出你让我怎么办？23了你回来了，我1个月能挣钱了，你回来了。
儿子，妈不是冲你的钱回来的，妈也知道，妈离开你这些年，你一定吃了不少的苦。这18年，妈亏欠你的，妈现在就想找回来，把我的母爱补偿给你。
The mother abandoned her husband and child for 18 years. After learning that her son was making $1 million a year, she hurried back home, crying and wanting to recognize her son again, and even demanded that her son support her in old age. Faced with his mother's crocodile tears, the son told her to get lost as far as possible.
18年你没回来，现在回来了，啥意思呀？我没钱的时候你不回来，23了你回来了。
儿子，妈知道妈错了，妈知道这18年亏欠你，没有给你母爱。别叫妈啊，
我不叫你妈，我不认识你。
This young man is named Xiaofeng. Opposite him is his mother Qin Ae, who abandoned him for 18 years. Because Xiaofeng's father was from the countryside, after giving birth to Xiaofeng for 5 years, Miss Qin despised Xiaofeng's father for being a poor man, so she decisively abandoned her son and chose to leave. Unexpectedly, many years later, after learning that her son and his father had already become a wealthy family, Miss Qin, under the guise of giving Xiaofeng motherly love, wanted to return to this home, but unexpectedly father and son didn't even let her step through the door.
他不以前就嫌我家穷吗？嫌我爸穷，走了。
我这18年过得也很苦，儿子小，他不知道，他现在也不理解。那时候我为啥离家出走？哪一个母亲愿意把自己的孩子丢下？那是因为他爹天天喝酒，不干活，懒惰，天天打我。
好，别说了，那我就问你一句，你为啥不带我走？你知道我爸是那样，你为啥不带我走？
As for why she didn't take Xiaofeng with her, Miss Qin said, when she left home she didn't even have a place to stay. Her parents passed away in the 3rd year after she married Xiaofeng's father, and after Miss Qin left home she had no family home to return to, she could only work everywhere. Back then, after marrying her husband, life was so poor that she had to leave home, and she didn't take much money with her, so she could only work for others. Later she worked as a nanny in a villa area. So why did Miss Qin not come back to see Xiaofeng all these years?
要是换一个人是应该回这个家，可是我不敢回来。我回来就是面临着挨打，面临着。
您当时挨打挨到什么程度呢？就让您这么害怕，18年就没再回来。
他打起人来不分地方乱打，抓着椅子也摔，抓着凳子也头上也砸，拿着棍子腿上也打，没有不打的地方。我身上那几年都是青的、红的、紫的，没有一块好肉。有时候夏天天热，穿个短袖出去，街坊邻居人家看见了都问：“哎呀，嫂子你怎么了？”我说我摔倒了，我不敢说被男人打成这样。
It turned out that according to Miss Qin, the reason she abandoned her husband and child was not because of herself. At first, when she got married, her husband was quite honest, very hard-working to earn money, but unexpectedly after she married him, her husband seemed to change into another person. During the day he wouldn't go work to earn money, lazy, and at night he often drank with drinking buddies, and when he came back drunk and unhappy with her, he would commit domestic violence, even once beating her until she miscarried. So seeing no future in front of her husband, she secretly chose to leave.
不打架，总是看着不顺眼，总是摔打东西，牢骚抱怨，说我到他们家是个丧门星。我到他们家之后，他干啥事都不成功，都是怨我。做生意他赔了也怨我，包工头做了1年赔了20多万，也是说怨我。我也找不出啥原因。我说我一个家庭妇女，我在家带孩子种着地，我咋就丧门星了？
Miss Qin said she couldn't understand. She was young and pretty at that time, staying home raising the child and also farming, while her husband was lazy and incompetent, failing at everything, and when he came home he put all the blame on her. Listening to Miss Qin crying with tears and snot, Xiaofeng sitting beside couldn't stand it anymore. Xiaofeng had followed his father for so many years, he knew very well what his father was like. It was completely different from what Miss Qin said.
你就嫌我家穷， 走了，想我爸穷走了呗。
咱没必要去。
何必回来编这么一大串谎言了，还在这儿？
我这些年，孩子，你知道我受的罪，我心里的那种痛苦，你知道吗？我在外边打工还想着孩子，你知道吗？
Ever since Miss Cheen worked as a nanny in other people's homes, she said that every night she cried under the blanket thinking of her son. She really wanted to come back home to see him, but she was afraid that coming back would still mean being beaten, so she simply didn't dare to come back. Looking at Miss Cheen crying with pear blossoms in the rain through the screen, the mediator present couldn't take it anymore.
钱女士啊，我听着特别难受。就是你看你说了半天，一滴眼泪也没出来，咱就何必要装哭呢？
不是，
咱就好好说话嘛。
我这些年我的眼泪都哭干了，
哭干了，咱在这儿就别哭了嘛。
The purpose of Miss Cheen coming today was to recognize her son again. But when the son thought of the shadow of his childhood, he couldn't accept the mother in front of him. Back then, because his mother left, Xiao Feng was nicknamed by classmates in school, called the kid without a mom.
我问你，你能回来看看我不能？
我知道我想回来，我没办法回来。我要是回来，面临着还是挨打。
我问你，你听过野孩子3个字没？我从小被教到大。野孩子，没妈的孩子，这都是我的外号啊。
Not only that, because his mother never came back, Xiao Feng's father found a stepmother for him, but the stepmother was also not good to him. When Xiao Feng was in school there was no tuition, and the stepmother didn't want to spend extra money on him, so Xiao Feng could only work while studying, earning his own tuition.
书本费800块，没人给我呀，怎么办？自己挣啊！我16岁去餐厅刷盘子的时候，你在哪儿？800块，家里就是拿不出，你让我怎么办？你让我怎么办？来，我问你来，来，嘉宾，我问你们来，
爸爸呢？你爸爸呢？妈妈走的时候5岁、16岁、11年。
我这么跟你说吧，有个妹妹，你听懂了吗？
妹妹。
Because the stepmother and father also had a child together, Xiao Feng had very low status in this family. The stepmother protected her own daughter in everything. And in these 18 years, if Miss Cheen had given Xiao Feng some financial support, or come to see him, he wouldn't have been so heartless to not recognize his biological mother. Now Miss Cheen has gotten older, no one wants to hire her for work anymore. The reason she found Xiao Feng was because she wanted him to support her in old age. However, at this time Xiao Feng's father also came to the program. Seeing Miss Cheen daring to come back after disappearing for 18 years, he immediately spoke out the real reason why she left back then.
你啥意思？18年了，你今儿回来了，你想做啥了你？
你说我想干啥呢？我咋不能回来了？这是我的家，我的孩子在这，我的家在这，我凭啥不能回来？
我跟你说，你出亏，
你血口
你连孩都不要了，
说啊？你给我说啥说？
你连孩都不要了，
你凭啥说我出轨？
咱家的日子过得苦，你不出轨出亏了呢？你18年了不回来，你找了多少人了你？
你做的啥事你不知道？我为啥离开家？你知道不知道？
好了吧，反正你做，反正。
As soon as Xiao Feng's father came on stage, he said, back then Miss Cheen must have left together with another man, otherwise he couldn't figure out why she left so decisively. Now he had raised his son with tears and sweat to adulthood, and at this time she wanted to come back, but there was no way she would be allowed in. So was Mr. Fan really a domestic violence man, as Miss Cheen said?
那时候30多岁，冷嘲热讽骂，你这死鬼，你不挣钱，咋回事？咋给我说？从来没有。
我是说你，我为啥不说你？我嫁给你啊，家里都没有钱，没有吃，没有穿，没有钱用啊，一个劲儿往外赔钱。
你看不起我？
你还喝酒喝醉，赌博，
我喝酒喝醉，我喝酒喝醉。我跟你说，我是个男人呐。
男人就得喝酒，就得回来打老婆，是不是？这就是男人的本事嘛。
It turned out that back then Mr. Fan was running a restaurant business. He and friends partnered to open a restaurant. The first half-year business was okay, made quite a bit of money, but in the second half-year because of some reasons the restaurant closed down, and they even owed more than 200,000 yuan in debt. After learning her husband lost so much money, Miss Cheen scolded Mr. Fan every day as a useless coward, saying his brain was like a pig's brain.
你天天说的老公没本事，天天说的老公不挣钱，天天
你挣个钱呢？你挣个钱搁哪儿呢？ 你这个钱拿回来了吗？
我是不是想挣钱？
出去1年赔1年，跟猪脑子一样啊！一天到晚没有一点主见，耳朵根都是软的啊！我说啥他都不听，一天到晚回来就那个死样子。
After the restaurant closed, Mr. Fan went to work on construction sites. For a period of time he was very upset. After work he would go drink a little to relieve worries. Unexpectedly Miss Chin, seeing her husband couldn't make money and even owed more than 200,000 yuan, scolded him like a dog every day. Now that Mr. Fan's life had gotten better, his son had also grown up and could make money, so Miss Chin wanted to return to this home, but there was no way she would be allowed in.
你看不上你老公，你净看不上。你该出轨，你净出轨了；你该走，你净走啊。今儿个你回来了，我就不认，我就不愿意。
出轨，你跟出轨的人给我捞出来啊！你哪之前看见出轨啊？
对，
跟谁出轨啊？拿出证据来。
There was certainly no evidence. Miss Chin didn't cheat back then either. The real reason was that she despised Mr. Fan for being poor. Seeing that her son and Mr. Fan didn't want to recognize her, unexpectedly Miss Chin suddenly revealed something, and this was her real reason for coming today.
我现在没有房了，看见村上拆迁了，没有房了，房了钱了啊！
你说啥？
你说我说啥？你说我说啥？
你这回回来，
我这回回来了
啊！你是要钱了吗你？
我就是要钱，
要房了吗你？
我该要，不该要啊！
别吵，
没门儿！
咱先回去。
没门儿啊！
先回去，别说到房子，这里面激动啊！咱先回去坐。
It turned out the real purpose of Miss Chin coming today was for the demolition compensation of the house. Back then when she married Mr. Fan, she brought a dowry of 100,000 yuan, and together with Mr. Fan built the house. At that time Mr. Fan only put in 50,000 yuan, not even half of what Miss Chin contributed. Now learning that this house had already been demolished, and the demolition compensation had been given out, Miss Chin said she should get a large portion of the compensation.
那房子跟你没有关系，我老婆也不会愿意，我老婆也不会，我现在要结婚了。
我跟你生活建的家跟他有啥关系啊？你凭啥拿你老婆拿着？你看看我是谁？睁开眼看看我是谁？
别激动，好了，别激动。
Mr. Fan said, ever since Miss Chin left, he didn't want to stay alone forever either. After he couldn't find Miss Chin, he met his current wife. Of course, Miss Chin and Mr. Fan still had a marriage certificate. So with the help of the court, Mr. Fan forcibly divorced Miss Chin, and then married his current wife. As for this house, Mr. Fan said, it belonged to both of them as joint property, and had nothing to do with Miss Chin at all.
这个你的妻子也不愿意，不同意，对吗？
不可能会同意。
你觉得这个事情跟他有关系吗？
我们俩是两口子，咱们关系啊？
有关系，对吗？
对啊。
好。
Since the house had something to do with Mr. Fan's current wife, the host then asked Mr. Fan to call and invite his current wife, Aunt Zhang, to the program. As soon as she came on stage, Aunt Chin looked at Ms. Zhang with disdain, and even wanted to make a move.
你看那德行啊，看见女人垂涎三尺，你看那德行跟假一把狗一样啊！你都会做人呐啊！
秦女士，你做
我跟你生活到一块儿，干死干活啊！你连个屁都不会放啊！你现在你看你那个怂样假一把狗。
秦女士，我。
Seeing her husband sitting together with another woman, Aunt Chin was furious. But after all, Aunt Chin came today to ask for the demolition compensation of the house. So what was the attitude of Mr. Fan's current wife?
这个钱你觉得是你们家的还是有他的？
是我们家的，有我们还有儿子还有姑娘。这房子这是我到他家已经13年了。
你可拉倒吧！我18年给你机会叫你钻两个空子啊，啥都是你的，孩儿是你的，饭是你的啊，拆迁是你的。我爱去这去的，跟你有啥关系啊？我想去这去的。
As soon as she came on stage, Ms. Zhang said, this house belonged to her and Mr. Fan, and had nothing to do with Miss Chin. But after all, this house was built with Miss Chin's 100,000 yuan together with Mr. Fan. And Mr. Fan was not an unreasonable person either. Mr. Fan said, back then he had already thought about it. No matter if Miss Chin came back or not, this house would always have half belonging to Miss Chin. Hearing this, Aunt Zhang could no longer stay calm.
不管他啥时候回来，都有他的一半。只不过
不可能啊，我不同意。
你不同意，你算哪根葱？你不同意？
你算哪根葱啊？
你闭住嘴吧你！
你才闭住嘴呢！你跑哪去了？
你有说话权利没有？
你不是？
你看看你是在扔儿子吗？你看看你是老几？
你是来扔儿子的吗？你要钱？
我跟他生活的时候建的家，凭啥你来说
不好说这些了
啊？
Then Ms. Zhang proposed a solution, that this demolition compensation, neither she nor Mr. Fan would take. Instead, all the compensation would go to their daughter and son. Faced with this plan, Aunt Chin said the demolition compensation must be divided into her hands. Not a single yuan less. Mr. Fan also said he was willing to give half of the demolition compensation to her. Seeing Mr. Fan stand on Aunt Chin's side, Aunt Zheng immediately got furious. Leaving one sentence, she stormed off.
你走啥走？你不要走，你给我说清。
你只要把钱给他，咱俩都离婚，我一钱不会跟你过。赶紧走，世界的女人多着嘞。哎，赶紧走，一走可清静啊，再没搅屎棍了。
Ms. Zhang stormed off the program. But after all, this house was built with Aunt Chin's 100,000 yuan. Mr. Fan also agreed that half of the demolition compensation would be given to the son. But after Aunt Chin got the demolition money, she wasn't happy. Then Aunt Chin revealed the real purpose of her coming today.
我不会走，儿子原谅不原谅我，我都不会走。我这个钱就是争取回来，我也是留给我的儿子。儿子，妈今天当着大家的面，我跟你说对不起，是妈的错。
你慢点。
是妈这些年对不起你，当着恁爸的面，我承认我错了，我跟你说声对不起。妈是长辈，不能给你下跪，妈给你鞠个躬，求你原谅，好不好？
It turned out Aunt Chin's purpose of coming today had two parts. The first was to get back the demolition compensation, which was a total of 700,000 yuan. Ms. Chin could get 350,000 yuan. This money Ms. Chin wouldn't keep, but would leave entirely for her son. So after leaving the money for her son, how would Ms. Chin support herself in old age?
今年一共赚了多少钱？
这是花花用用，手里边也就是存个30来万块钱。
30多万，
也就是刚好30万，不过，
不少啊。
In these 18 years, although Aunt Chin's salary was never high, slowly she had saved more than 300,000 yuan. For a woman in her 50s or 60s, 300,000 yuan was enough for the rest of her life. Now she was not too old, and could still work as a nanny. She didn't ask her son to support her in old age until death. She only hoped her son could forgive her and recognize her as his mother again.
什么不好把这个家庭毁了？什么不好让你小时候受了这么多的委屈？
The reason she insisted on getting back the demolition compensation was also because Aunt Chin learned that this stepmother wasn't good to her son at all. All the housework was done by Xiaofeng, even his tuition had to be earned by washing dishes. Now if her son needed to buy a car or a house, she could also give her own retirement savings to him. Although Xiaofeng couldn't accept this mother right away, but after all, she was his biological mother, Xiaofeng still said he was willing to give Aunt Chin a chance.
妈妈以后会好好对你，会拿我的母爱补偿给你，好不好？行。
In the end, Xiaofeng still forgave his mother.
To be honest, this story is really full of emotions. 18 years ago, Aunt Chin's leaving made Xiaofeng suffer endless grievances and hardships. He even had to work to pay for his studies. But today, Aunt Chin came back with guilt, not only bowing in front of everyone to admit her fault, but also leaving all 350,000 yuan of the demolition compensation to her son. When she was young, she might have been selfish and weak, but now, she really learned to take responsibility and is working hard to make up for the missing motherly love. Xiaofeng, although carrying wounds in his heart, still chose to forgive, and maybe this is the greatness of family affection. Blood is thicker than water. Even if it came 18 years late, motherly love has still come back in the end. What do you think? If it were you, facing such a mother, would you choose to forgive? Welcome to share your thoughts in the comment section. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.